before I was here, my brother and I became partners in here in 1975 because my dad wanted to retire. and so, like this old reefer here was not here that we used for an office for a long time.
Now, why did they call this a reefer?
Well, that's just kind of what they call them, I guess. Like it used to be like a truck van or a reefer, I guess, where they, hauled stuff. It was part of like a trailer or on a truck. And some of my friends, one of the guys that used to haul steel for us and scrap, Martin Rodriguez from Help Trucking. He's gone now. But this was in the yard that he knew of. And a lot of times what would happen with me, my dad and uncle were both old guys from the Depression, and my uncle, it really affected him very negatively. He was just very afraid of everything. He didn't want to borrow any money. He didn't really want to make any improvements and stuff if it cost money. So a lot of times him and my aunt would go back to Minnesota to visit her nephew, usually in September. And when he left, I would try to have some plans to maybe improve some stuff that didn't cost too much money. So I ended up getting this, and we made it into an office, and then we cleaned up the shop, and that kind of freed that up so that we could work out of there more and stuff, because it used to just be packed full of stuff.
So this was the original shop.
This was the original.
Your dad?
And in fact, there's a story about this. When we go inside that building, some of that timber in there, my uncle and dad said came from Kaiser Wilhelm's yacht.
Really?
Believe it or not. Back in the day when I first came in, I mean, this thing was just aisles, and it was just packed full of stuff. Because Dad and Uncle Al used to buy a lot of stuff for surplus and stuff, and just all kinds of stuff. Well, we used to have, there was like a desk in this corner where this air compressor is, and I remember for a long time, all the math we did, we're figuring out tickets and stuff. We did all that on paper.
Well, yeah.
Didn't even use a adding machine or anything.
Right.
And then later on, when we cleaned this out, that was kind of my uncle's desk, which I believe that might be at Gil's house now. I can't remember. But then later on, I had a desk over here, and then my granddad, we used to have an old wood stove my granddad had there, but it was kind of coming apart. So I ended up this one coming to scrap or something, and I just changed them out. I put that heatilator on there, so because this shop's not insulated, but some of this wood in the ceiling is the stuff I think that they were talking about that came from Kaiser Wilhelm's yacht.
Oh, for heaven's sake.
So,
now, about in the beginning.
well, when
What were they? Their plans was to use this as what?
well, basically, the business, we were kind of in two different businesses. We bought scrap metals. We didn't buy like a lot of the recyclables and stuff like you do now, but we bought like scrap iron, cast iron, and then we used to have an old magnet down in the back, and where we could load the stuff, and that had like two motors on it, two gas engines. One would run the drawworks of the crane, and then the other one was a welder that supplied the electricity to a magnet that was about, I don't know, 3 or 4 foot across, and that's what energized the magnet. Then you had a switch, and when you set the magnet down, it would energize it, and you'd get the load, and then when you swung around to load it on the truck or unload, then you shut the switch off, and that would dump it, because it took the charge out,
Wow.
electric magnet. And then we used to buy like copper and brass and aluminum, and some of that aluminum we'd load stuff up and then ship it down to Los Angeles. And then some of that aluminum, if it was contaminated, Bill Huffman from Mobile Smelting between here and Mojave, which that's all been shut down and he's dead. But remember when we had all the cancer scare?
Yes,
he was one of the guys they investigated. But we used to have aluminum smelted there, and then he would put it like into ingots, and get rid of all the contamination, and then we could market them. And so we bought scrap metals, and we sold new and used steel. and a lot of the used steel would be stuff that we'd salvage from out of the scrap and stuff. And a lot of the used stuff, that market just kept getting less and less because the contractors and stuff couldn't use that if they're building something, you know, because it's all got to be certified and whatnot. But just the average guy, when we dealt with a lot of people, just walk-in trade, guys doing little projects, and we dealt a lot. We bought a lot of scrap aluminum and different stuff from like the farmers and stuff, the alfalfa farmers, and because there was a lot more agriculture, you know, back in the day, like John Calandry raising onions, and the Alesso brothers raising alfalfa hay, and Armando Arusi, and the Bozigians, and just a lot of things have changed. That's one reason that I ended up, I was in here partners with my uncle from 75 till 95. I think I got in January. My brother was killed in June of 75. My uncle passed away in September of 95, and then I was here until just about 2001 by myself, with no hired help or anything. And then I just things, a lot of things had changed. I needed to do something else. So I worked a little bit for Southern Kern Unified School District part-time, and then I worked 17 years full-time for the city of Lancaster as a park maintenance guy.
Right. So this, your dad and your uncle started this in what year?
In about 1949, I think it was, yeah, right, give or take a little bit. And, you know, and then I was born in 52, so, you know, I just remember that this was a playground. I mean, I talked to guys, like one of the guys up at Carl's Hardware Store, he remembered being here as a kid, you know, I mean, this was quite a playground for a kid running, you know, around, just looking at stuff and messing around, getting into stuff.
Well, let's go look at stuff.
Yeah, that's a bandsaw. So we used to cut, you know, a lot of steel. Like a lot of the steel that we sold, like the new steel, like you see some of these barrels and stuff welded together, and we stored the new steel in those to keep them out of the rain. So, like if I went and picked up steel in the bobtail truck, or he brought it in the semi, we unloaded it with a fork. A lot of times we'd pull up there and we'd actually slide that in by hand to store it, and then when we're selling it, then you're sliding it back out. Well, most all of that stock steel is like 20-foot bar lengths, like stuff like angle, channel, rounds, you know, so on and so forth. And so a lot of guys couldn't haul it, and you know, we'd cut it in half for them to haul into 10-foot lengths.
This is like going to the dump. You come in here and get your truck hauled. Whoops, you gotta wait for Gretchen.
It's locked down. This is an old, I even forget what to make of it. See, there's the state certifications. You used to have to be you had to be like a certified scale master if you're going to give like certified receipts. Like a lot of the people that were moving the Air Force guys on and off the base, they got paid for moving, so that they would come here and get a certified copy of a weight ticket, so that they could get paid for, you know, whatever goods and stuff they were moving. But then we used it too for like I said, buying scrap and laying people in and out, and then like for checking our loads so that we weren't too heavy when we were going to go to Los Angeles to market or whatever, you know, because you get an overload ticket, then you're going to spend a bunch of money for fines.
Do you have one of your old tickets in here?
I don't believe I do. Probably at home I may have some, but see, it's just an old balance scale, you know. Everything's by hand. You have to move it.
Yeah. Now, what's in these boxes, in the drawers over here?
This was, I don't know where they ended up with these, but this was like a draftsman's cabinet or something. I think where they actually used
Gracie, you're in the way.
paperwork, but it used to be there was just all kinds of little stuff in here, like stuff like this, just you name it. Just storage was just for little stuff, big stuff, whatever, was just it was just an ongoing deal. You never had enough storage.
No.
You know? No, nobody does, I guess. It's not just us. But nobody.
Yeah.
And this, I'm thinking, for the time being, because he had asked us, Harold had asked us the other day, are we going to take the scale out? And I don't think we are. I'm probably just going to leave the scale house and the scale for the time being. I don't think that's going to bother them much as far as area and everything. I don't really think they'll use it if they're doing auto parts salvage thing, but I don't know. It's a pretty big job to move a scale and stuff like this. And
Oh yeah.
plus, I don't know. I kind of, if I keep leasing this and don't sell the property, then I also kind of like the historical value of it. You know.
Yeah.
We acquired this just from connection. Somebody was cleaning up the property or something, and it's got this flywheel here, and the belt, of course, makes it go around. And what we would do if you had like pieces of copper, or brass, or aluminum, or something that were contaminated, when that's going, this thing's going up and down, and up and down, and up and down.
Oh, okay.
It's a little alligator shear.
Oh, wow.
And so you could feed the stuff in there and like, you know, maybe cut the contamination off and then let the other stuff go into a container or something. And so it was just like for cleaning, you know, material like that. I don't think it's gonna go because of that belt. That belt's probably too loose or something.
Yeah.
We had at one time, and it's gone, but the Purdy company ended up with it. We had a bigger version of this that we sheared scrap metal with, and it had probably about a 4 or 5 foot blade, just the exact same thing like this. If you see, these are a couple pieces of flat iron, and see the way they're positioned as you're cutting it between those two edges. That one edge is buttoned up against the other one.
So it's kind of like looking like scissors?
Yeah, basically big industrial grade piece of scissors. And that thing was so heavy, we could hook onto it with a crane truck or something and move it, you know. But there again, it had a flywheel about this tall, probably 5 foot tall, but it didn't have the what the hell kind of belts do you call those? The modern belts. It had the old flat belt. So that flat belt, about 6 inches wide, that is connected with little metal things, and you had a little machine. You'd put it in the vise, and if you broke a belt, you would cut it to the right length, and then that thing would press these little connectors in, which they were 2 loops. There'd be a loop. Like the belts coming together, there's a loops here going all the way across the 6 inches, and here, then you had like a piece of rawhide that connected them together.
Oh, wow.
And then that would go on the top of that flat belt, and then there'd be another wheel at the other end, and that one had a little 235 Chevy engine that ran it.
Wow.
So what you would do, and you would loosen the belt when you're not using it. It had a piece of all thread with a nut on it, and you'd back that off and loosen it. Well, then when you got ready to use it, you'd tighten that down, and then you'd get that engine going, put it in gear, and you'd have to, and sometimes I think I even turned that one a little bit by hand. But you had to be very, very careful because it's a very dangerous piece of equipment. I mean, just like this, don't have any guard or anything on it.
Right.
You know, by today's standards, I mean, you don't even, think about
you probably
doing.
wouldn't turn the kids loose out here.
Exactly.
Now, what was this used for?
And then these, like this bin and that one, these actually will dump. So if you can pick this up with a forklift, and then, like, say if you were gonna load a truck or whatever, you just trip that latch there, and then this is gonna, it's made so that it's kind of overbalanced, and it'll dump.
Oh, wow.
And the same way with that one over there.
Uh-huh.
So,
Okay. Alrighty. How about these things here?
those were containers. Actually, there's a lot of those, I think, that we acquired from Bob and Tommy Loomis when they ran R&J Auto Parts.
Oh.
And years and years ago, what we would do when Great Lakes Carbon was going, we would cut pipe, a lot of 2-inch pipe. I think we cut that to about 14 inches, and they used it in the furnaces. So what we would do, we'd bring a 2-inch pipe, and a lot of that was used just black iron pipe. We'd put it on that the cutoff saw, and we would cut those, and then we would stack them in those bins. And then when Bob came, or Tom, we would load them in the back of the pickup or whatever. They would take them out to his shop out there where he lived, and then they would weld. I think they welded a flange or something on them, you know, so that they could set over there the way, however they had to sit in the furnace.
Oh. Okay.
And then we also used to have a setup where we actually welded some 3-inch pipe together at certain lengths, and they had some function in the furnace as well.
Oh, wow.
So, but you know, that was years and years ago.
Yeah.
This is an A-frame, and my dad and uncle used to have, like on a lot of these old military trucks that they had, which they had a flatbed or two, but several of them were dump trucks. Because we used to haul granite out of our pit north of town too, that decomposed granite pit. We had 20 acres of patented ground there that was BLM. We ended up getting it patented, and then we used to haul granite for like out to Wilmar Farms and different places for driveways and just whatever.
And that was your guys' pit?
Yeah, it was. And that there was 60 acres there. BLM claims, and I think my dad and uncle managed to get 20 of it patented. And then after my uncle and dad were gone, it was a liability to me because you got a big hole for people to dump trash, and it's not fenced, and then people can, you know, ride over the edge on a motorcycle or something and get hurt. So I ended up selling it to Dan Spohr, and then he's resold it since. But these A-frames, those old trucks were all, they had like the power takeoffs, and which were all mechanical, not electric, would run from the engine and stuff. And so that'd be like on the front of a truck. And we even had one time, I think, on a 1962 half-ton pickup truck, and when I lived at the old Whitmore mine off of Silver Queen Road. And you know, you could use them to pull posts or lift something and load something. And at one time, my dad and uncle, when they were first starting this yard, about the time they opened it up or before, they had a contract for all of the redwood telegraph poles, the cross arms, the wire, the insulators, all of that stuff from Mojave to Needles. That they sold the contract from Barstow to Needles to someone else, I don't know who, and they took everything down from Barstow to Mojave. We used to have rolls of that wire, and that wire was pretty heavy too, heavier than you would think it would be. And there's still some insulators back there. You can even have some for souvenirs, but most of them are chipped and stuff. And there's one building in the back that's actually framed up from cross arms.
Really?
That were on for the telegraph.
Oh, wow.
So,
wow.
Looks like they're already bringing in a car.
Uh-oh. Okay. Now, tell me about this.
Well, this came from the Southern Turn Roping and Riding Club, the arena. And the one gal whose name I can't remember now that was connected with it at the time, basically, I guess they wanted it out of there, and she asked me if I was interested. And I actually, you know, ran some cattle and stuff myself at one time, myself and some friends, and I don't know, that's always been one of my passions, is the ranching and the horse and cattle stuff. And so I thought, well,
now, to the untrained eye, this looks like a drunk putting together a fence sideways.
Well, what it is,
so explain it to me.
What the deal is with this is usually, a lot of cattle are hauled anymore like in a stock trailer, like it'd either be a bumper pull or a gooseneck stock trailer. But this is really is for loading cattle into a semi. So the semi would pull up next to this, and you'd have corrals and stuff. And you'd run the cattle up this loading chute, and then into the truck.
Yeah, pretty awesome.
The good old days.
Yeah.
But when they took down those poles and stuff, like from Barstow to Mojave, that's what they were using, was those trucks with those A-frames on them.
Oh, wow.
They were pulling those like out of the ground and had like, they'd have a cable with a hook and stuff, and then they'd move over to the trailer or whatever. We used to have an old semi with like a pole dolly, and I think they hauled a lot of those tapered redwood poles on a pole dolly, you know.
So now if I have these rails, where would I get the wheels?
Well,
Would you have made them?
No, we used to have, you know, mine cars, and then there's a pretty big market for that too, because a lot of people just want them for, you know, yard art. And I don't know, my dad, like I said, all the years that he was in the mining, I mean, we actually, you know, did physical mining, but he also dealt and traded a lot of equipment. And in fact, the Thunder Mountain ride at Disneyland down in LA, and then also the one in Japan, well, some of the rock around that Thunder Mountain come from at the base of the Soledad Mountain.
Oh, really?
That my dad got, and then a lot of the other stuff that's laying out around there, like if they had a mine car or like gears or pulleys or whatever, is stuff that came either from my dad that he had accumulated, or from out of this yard. Or
wow.
Here's something that's interesting too. This is this was a thing right here. I'm probably going to end up saving this. This is for crushing samples of ore.
Oh, wow.
Like for hard rock mining. So the with that motor turning, it would actually spin this little bowl here, and so this is basically like a mechanized mortar and pestle.
Right.
And this thing's supposed to see how it slides down there. And then you could, with that sliding around, you could like lift that and crush that ore. And every mine ever discovered in the old days was discovered by someone taking a sample, crushing it, and panning it with a pan.
Oh, wow.
And then if you saw that, you know, then you'd take it and get it assayed, and if it was rich enough to warrant the exploration and stuff, then you would move ahead with it. There were other times, like with the placer gold or the lode or the free gold, you know, it's just like, man, you look down there and like say this one's just a nugget. And of course during the gold rush, you know, Sutter's Mill and that, there was a lot of the placer gold. But a lot of the stuff like they're mining up there at Soledad Mountain and stuff, that's all hard rock.
Oh,
so
it's a table. What kind of table is it?
It's a cutting table. See all these little notches and stuff here?
Well, I'm thinking it'd have to be cut in some sort of metal.
Yeah, you would take like a piece of plate and put down there, and then we used to have a little machine that it had a track on it, so it'd be kind of like the mine car deal, except it's a mini version, and you'd lay this thing out the way you wanted it. And you couldn't cut any angles or patterns or anything, but you could cut, you know, straight off. And you'd have that on there, and you'd make a mark, and you'd get everything set up. And then this thing was electric, had a little motor, and you'd get the flame lit, and it would just go along and just cut it a lot prettier than you could do by hand.
Now, you know? Were these marks kind of like roller marks?
That's where it you know, run on the end, and that's all the torch running into the metal.
Into the metal, wow. So now why is this so rough here?
Same deal. You know?
Oh, okay, because maybe
Yeah,
you're cutting
yeah.
this way?
We cut both ways. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So.
Maybe you can give this to Raleigh for a barbecue spit. Now, someone had once said that you could take and heat one of those with just a candle. They were so well insulated. Is that so?
These aren't insulated. These
Okay.
here were made for hauling cars, and actually a lot of these were taller. I think they would haul. They like several. There were 2 decks, 2 or 3 in there, you know, and but yeah, these aren't insulated at all.
Oh,
And that's an old military people hauler.
Oh, you're
And
kidding.
see where all the tin is there? Those were, you know, were windows at one time. And then there's the, you know, that was the door to get in and out. And
So that was like a bus.
yeah, like a bus that you pull, you know.
Did they have seats in there, Joe?
At one time they probably did, but it's all just, you know, gutted and bare now.
Uh-huh.
But we actually, at one time, we had our horses over at the Pengillies across from Albertsons, and we got this moved over there, and we're storing hay in it.
Oh, wow. 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 Okay.
You had a piece of wood that was threaded and screwed into these. That was what held these to the cross arm of the tapered pole for the telegraph line.
Oh, for the telegraph
And then this
line.
was the insulator that the wire had went around.
Now, why did you need an insulator to go?
Because if you didn't, it's going to short out, I guess. But you would think that on the wood, but then if you put a metal staple on it or something, you know, like you would for a fence,
Uh-huh.
that would probably short it out.
Oh.
So I think that's why they have to have insulators.
Okay.
Shut up.
Joe Kengott, well, actually, a while back, somehow or another, I got acquainted with a guy. Do you know Bob Albus? He's an historian.
Uh-huh.
And or I don't know if it's just a hobby or what it is, if he's got any official role, but at any rate, he wanted, I somehow or another I got this other phone, and I thought I had his number in it, and I don't, but I guess he lost my number. I didn't have his. He called Joe Kengott. Joe Kengott didn't want to give him the number without clearing it through me. I said, yeah, that's fine. So I know who you're talking about. Well, he came down and looked at this, and he thinks this was an old, from the color, Union Pacific bunk car
Really?
for sleeping the workers, you know.
Wow.
And this thing used to be just full of all kinds of nuts and bolts and cotter cables.
So you guys were using it for storage, Joe?
Yeah. We need to walk around to the other side of this too. I'm going to show you something else. So, see, here's a bunch of stuff. Look. This stuff's probably been here since. Look at that. That's still sealed up.
Oh, for heaven's sakes.
You could take one or two of them or whatever. See, that have probably
Yeah.
these little brass screws in there. That's all war surplus stuff.
Really?
Want one of them?
Yeah.
Crazy, huh?
Yeah, for heaven's sakes.
I'll take one here.
Yeah. See if we had a gift shop, Gretchen.
Maybe we ought to take all of them. We'll sell them in the gift shop.
Uh-huh.
And get a bill
And we'll pay for our utilities.
I'll donate.
Well, we'll hike your stuff, Joe.
Now see, here's some of these poles have been cut, but they were redwood poles, and they're tapered, and that where they're cut here on that taper, that would have been, I think, the top of the pole, and then that cross arm would have went through there somewhere below that taper,
Uh-huh.
and you know they were longer than this.
Right.
But here's some of the remnants of them. Redwood.
Oh, for heaven's sakes.
I love that redwood.
Yeah.
Huh?
Oh, that's nice, Joe.
Yeah, well, and then if you stop and think about that, you know, back at that time, think about where some of that redwood come. Probably from Northern California, I would guess. You know.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, because this was way back when
Yeah,
you got
yeah.
these.
Yeah, the telegraph deal. Well, you know what, the Pony Express ended in what? Was it the late 60s, early 70s, in the 1800s?
1800s.
So that's when the telegraph came in.
Now, do you remember them bringing in this railroad car, Joe?
This thing was here when I was a kid.
When you were a kid.
Yeah. So,
And you
No,
believe
it-
it would be
like-
what they would have called the pony car?
well,
Not-
he's thinking, Bob was thinking just from what you can see of the paint, that kind of like orangish looking, he's thinking it was probably Union Pacific.
Uh-huh.
So,
Was he interested in restoring
he actually, I told him, I said, you or anybody you know, in fact, my veterinarian was thinking about wanting to get this. He was going to take the thing all the way to Arizona.
it? Wow.
And, but I kind of tried to discourage him. I said, if you want to do it, do it. But I said, man, what a bag of worms, you know? But we may, well, like Harold, he may end up just knocking it down. But that Santa Paula Railroad outfit, you know, down there, they've actually got some old buildings, and then they've got that train that they actually, I think, Halloween and Christmas and different times, you know, they run that train.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the how to move it part. That's,
Well, it'd take a low boy or something, but the trouble of it is that the way, I mean, you can see it's listing now, but if you had it, you know, on a trailer and you could tie it down without, you know, something just. Harold yesterday said that he knocked one of these down with a backhoe before he got his excavator, and he said you wouldn't. He said it was a job. He said he just was taking bites at it because these things were so well built. It was a chore to demolish it.
well, you'd
with
hate
the
to see
excavator-
someone demolish it.
With the excavator, it wasn't such a big deal, but with the backhoe, he said it was a job.
Wow.
Yeah, and like I said, I'd love to see that sitting somewhere, and hell, put a cowboy bar in it or something, you know,
Yeah.
and have a patio and just walk out and drink some Pendleton whiskey or something, or some tequila or something,
Oh,
you know,
yeah,
and
yeah.
chase it down with some Corona beer.
Yeah, yeah. and then you could come up in the morning and have cowboy coffee.
There you go. There you go. And see these metal deals, and then they have the wood on the end of them,
Uh-huh.
and that's that thread, like I said, that the insulator screwed onto that.
Oh, wow.
And, but that my dad and uncle, well, the stuff that's on the roof's not made out of the cross arms, but all these uprights and stuff, they're cross arms from those telegraph poles. And that Bob Albus, he was here a few weeks ago, and he wanted, you know, a few of these, which I let him. He took a little saw and he cut them off, and I probably really should do the same thing myself.
Yeah, you should.
But because I could stand one of them up there at the house, like by the tack room or something, and put an insulator on it, and maybe give another one to my brother and my kids and stuff, and even some of you guys, you know.
Yeah,
maybe
yeah,
if
I'd
I do
sure
cut
like
some of these up, we'll put one in, keep one for the society if we got room for it, or
Yes.
hang on to it or whatever.
Yes.
Well, I'd like it.
Okay. Yeah, Martin Engel lived in Cantil, and he ran the post office there, but he was an assayer. And I remember when I was a kid, we would go sometimes to Cantil to drop off assays or pick up the results and so on and so forth. And being in this yard, I mean, we had all kinds of people coming in. Oh, they got this mining deal or that mining deal, and a lot of them were promoters. If you cannot, in a hard rock mine, if you cannot crush the ore and pan it and get some color, it's not going to necessarily be big nuggets or anything, but you got to have some color, and then take it and get it assayed by somebody that's reputable, because you don't want them to be screwed up and have, like, they assayed this and it was real rich, and then they don't clean it out good, so now they call that it's salted. Well, then it's going to affect the results of the next assay. So you got to have somebody that knows what they're doing and somebody that you trust, because there's all kinds of guys out there promoting mines.
Yeah.
But if you don't get an assay and it's something that you know is going to be good enough that it pays to explore it, you're just spinning your wheels.
Right.
You're going to lose money from before you even get started. So my dad was, in fact, I think on old cassette tapes, I probably got information like interviewing Martin, because my dad always wanted me to write more, you know, and I just, well, when I went to college, I did 2 years at Cal Poly San Luis Obispo. I ended up with like an AA degree in animal science, and I could not do algebra. To this day, I can't do it. I had old Dean Chaffin in Mojave. He was an old cowboy and roper. I told him, I said, he'd do a problem, and I think I had it, and then I'd go to the next one, and I couldn't get it. I said, to me, it's like we're at a roping. I'm backing into the box. I don't know if we're dally roping or if we're tying hard and fast. Every time it's something different. So I go to college, and I made up my mind, by God, I'm going to start taking this math. Well, hell, the first quarter I took algebra, I flunked it in college, and it screwed up my cumulative average for several, but the next time the second time I took it, I got a C.
Yay!
Yeah, which for me, that was good. But I had an English class and a speech class, and the guy in the English class, English lit, the guy told me, he said, you don't belong here. He said, you want me to bump you up to the next class? I said, no. I said, I spend all my time doing math homework. I said, I want to just stay here.
Yeah.
And so he said, all right. But if I got less than an A on a paper, he had me in the office, are you sick or something wrong? And some of those papers I was writing 15, 20 minutes before I went to the class.
Wow.
And then I had a speech class, and a woman professor, and she told me, she said, I hope you didn't buy the book for this class. She said, you break every rule they ever wrote in a speech book except for one. She said, you get your point across. And she said, if you can do that, she said, none of the rest of them matter. So that was pretty comical, I mean. And I actually loved those two classes because I just, you know.
Yeah.
Save your film and we'll go up
Okay.
there and look at that riveted toolbox.
Tracy.
I want to open the lid and maybe we can see the other side of it.
The riveted box.
Yeah, see? Somehow they got, what they might have did is they put them through, and then if they had that heated up, they probably had something where they just hit it with a hammer or something and to crimp them so that they can't pull back through. But see, this has got some nuts and bolts too, and of course those are newer than the rivets.
Here's the rivets right here. Right there.
The bottom's about rusted out of that. If you got enough of that, I'm going to just shut the lid.
Do you know
Okay.
where it came from?
No,
John?
I scrap. I cannot believe the stuff you get in the scrap when you're in the scrap business. Because sometimes people got to get rid of stuff, other people want to get rid of it.
So you think the whole box came in?
Oh yeah,
Belgium?
definitely, yeah. It wasn't in pieces where you assemble it or whatever. At one time, I guess it was. But
Well, I tell you. Yeah.
my mother-in-law, who come from England and got that accent, still, you know, says bloody this and bloody that. That was Beverly's mother.
Yeah.
But she lived back there in Biloxi too. She's one of these that I mean, she is a clean freak, you know.
Oh,
I
Lordy.
mean, she dusts all the time, and like Gil and I, you know, we've always got a boneyard, you know. You got stuff out there, some fence posts or panels or this, that, or the other thing, you know. Maybe you're gonna use them at some point in time.
Yeah.
She doesn't really believe in boneyards and stuff. You know? You should have it kind of sanitized, you know.
Yeah. 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 So what are you guys gonna do with these metal?
Well,
things and stuff?
this is something that I'm thinking Eric might be interested in, is possibly some of the steel, but maybe the steel racks. So I'm going to ask him about them.
And those are the racks that slide up. with
Yeah,
the
you could get on the end of this with a forklift. See, the reason I got those cables on there is if you get a bad wind, I've seen them things, the wind get under them and flip them up. Because if you could come here with a forklift, see how that steel is there in the middle where you're not going to hit this, you're going to hit the other steel.
Right.
My uncle made them so that you could lift them up with a fork. Then we put some props underneath here, and then you could take the forklift and you could load like that top rack.
Oh, okay.
So these were all built while I was a partner here with Monk.
Wow.
And then there was another one, a bigger one than this, that Eric gets sitting there in Eric's yard down at the place north here, or south of here. Yeah, but I mean, that's the thing. If I get rid of some of this stuff, this big stuff, I mean, that frees up a lot of space.
Yeah.
You know? And the same way with that container, you know?
Yeah.
But like I said, it's definitely gonna, the stuff, the character that we've been looking at on this little tour, it's gonna be gone, you know? And it's changed a lot since I was in here, you know? I mean, because we've been cleaning and doing stuff.
So, Joe, you have no grandkids right now.
I have one step grandchild.
One step grandchild. If you had words for the ages to come and generations to follow, what would you say?
I just say live every day and be thankful for your blessings. God puts us on a wonderful journey, and I think He knows that I like mine with some adventure, because there's been a lot of it. Well, some of the little things, like my first trip after I retired. I got my camper shell on there, bought it used, no maker on the thing, no name plates, no nothing. I'm up in Oregon. I'm in eastern Oregon. I'd been to the Steam Mountains and the little hotel. What the hell was the name of it? The name's slipping my mind. But anyway, I stop in Field Station. All it is, it's a little restaurant, a little mini market, and you could get some fuel, maybe some propane. And I'm talking to the waitress, and her husband had worked for one of the ranches, and she's pregnant. She said in about 2 weeks I'm going to Medford to my folks' place to have this baby. And I'm having lunch and stuff, and I said, well, I'm headed to Idaho. I said, I've been to Pendleton to the rodeo and stuff. I got friends on the rodeo committee, and Tehachapi got me tickets to the Pendleton Roundup. And I've been traveling around. I said, now I'm headed to Idaho. She said, well, if you don't mind being on a dirt road, she said, you get on that dirt road, you're going to be on it for 50 miles before you hit the pavement again. So I said, oh, that's perfect. So she said, well, just keep going this direction and be looking off to your left. About 10 or 12 miles, there's going to be a big, wide gravel road called White Horse Ranch Road, which I had studied some of that history because Miller and Lux, the cattleman, Henry Miller from Germany, they were in the San Joaquin Valley and all over in several different states. When he died in the 20s, he had control, I think, of nearly 1 million acres of land and about $50 million in the bank. He told the interviewer, he said, I've made 3 fortunes in my life. One for my lawyers, one for my partners, and one for me.
I love it.
And so I'm on this dirt road, and I got this camper shell, and the dust is fogging up and stuff, and I'm getting out and taking some pictures because there were some ranch entrances with Henry Miller's brand, the Double H brand.
Oh, wow.
And all of a sudden, I walked up to the back of my truck, And evidently at one time, etched on the inside of the rear window was the maker of this camper shell. So in dust about this tall, it spelled it out, innovation. And I went home and Googled it, and they made camper shells.
Wow.
So there you go. Just a little story. I mean, how often does that happen?
Yeah.
You know?
Oh,
I mean, you can't make this stuff up.
no, 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 no. Well, those are good stories, Joe.
The end.
The end.
Okay.
Those are good stories.
I'll turn her off. The end of an era.